Today, I have an amazing couple that agreed to come on, Monica and Jan Zanz, who also have their own podcast. And they both have degrees in spiritual psychology, masters in spiritual psychology. They're here to talk about living authentically within relationship. And I actually was blessed enough to go and listen to them when they were doing their own. They do something called Mindset Academy at Fit Life Studios, and I got to come and see you guys, and I was so impressed. And I thought, oh my God, these guys are such a united front. They are so you envelop a very loving feeling. And you were talking that day, I've gone to two of these, but that day they were talking about relationship. And I felt like they transcended a lot of the stuff that's out there about relationship. And I was really interested in what you guys were talking about. So here we are. So why don't you guys take a second, and you can introduce yourself much better than me. So we'll start with that, and then we'll take off.
Would you like to go first?
No, you go first.
Okay, great. So I'm Jan, and this is Monica. Obviously,
hello.
I'm just getting a sense
We want
of
to
this.
make sure that
like
people
who
know
am I?
his name is,
Who am I talking to? I'm
Yes,
speaking
like
with
is she
you.
Jan? Are
Well,
you
no,
Monica?
But I'm
Because it
excited.
sounds European.
Yes, but I'm excited to be speaking to them. But I'm
Yeah,
speaking to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, just want to be
Yeah.
clear. Okay, wonderful. So, like you said, yeah. So Monica and I, we met when we were in college, when she was 18 and I was 20.
Long time.
A long time ago. And and after college, we both pursued pretty exciting ventures, and we were both in just regular corporate America, just doing what we thought we wanted to do, which was producing and writing and creating and some exciting stuff. Trying to work our way up the corporate ladder.
Right, which people normally try to do.
Right, and we were successful at that, but it wasn't fulfilling. And really, what ended up happening was that's kind of the business part of why our business is really all about doing something fulfilling. Our business is about living a life that we love and teaching others to do the same. Our purpose is to spread love on the planet. But it all stems from the fact that our relationship was broken and wasn't working.
Wait. I think, where did that part come in?
Well, basically, we had a beautiful college romance. And I'm not really introducing ourselves.
You saved this for the show. This is really the juicy stuff.
Well, sure. So, but we had a beautiful college romance, and then we actually were engaged, and then became disengaged after college. And then we became engaged again, and we might tell that story. It's a good story. We became engaged again, and when we got married, our first year of marriage was a disaster. It was.
I am just. Are you guys hearing this? This is amazing, because most people, there's always assumptions, and you guys are great. Okay, let's hear.
Well, it was a disaster, and we didn't know how to function within our marriage. Like basically, we didn't know how to communicate. There was a lot of stuff going on.
No, I was right. He was wrong. I knew how to communicate. He didn't, and it all went to crap. I'm being silly.
Yes.
No,
but
right.
That was my perspective at the time. It's
Right.
like I was great, and he was trying to get greater or get good, and I made him wrong all the time. And we had a huge wake up call, like how much I was belittling him and destroying him and putting him down. And the reason I did that is I had a father who was very disciplinarian and very critical and thought reverse psychology is how you motivate and stimulate people. And he was not raised by parents. He was raised by a grandma who was much
do you mean
older.
like more negative reinforcement?
Total negative.
Yes.
Instead of positive?
Yeah, he incentivized through terrible criticism.
Right, through fear.
Yes.
Okay.
Therefore, careers you can have, otherwise you're a failure. It was very black and white.
Yeah.
It was, there was like, it was
The intention,
bad or really good.
The intention was loving, but the methodology wasn't effective for her.
Yeah, it was.
Well, actually,
it was off-putting, but yes,
it might have been effective.
What was great is it turned me into a seeker. It turned me into wanting to prove. It turned me into a go-getter. It pulled me from being only up there into, okay, I better execute on some things. Otherwise, I don't think my father will appreciate or love me.
Right.
And I had that misunderstanding that love was defined by what you accomplished
Right.
And your worth was defined by what you accomplished, not by who you are.
As I think in our
inherently.
society, a lot of people are going on that track as well, or they think they should.
Yeah.
So it's good information.
Yeah. So we then knew that we either were going to get divorced or we needed to do some work. And so we did our very first, we went to a transformational weekend, and she came out of that weekend and she said, I've been blaming you for everything that is not working in my life.
And I was like, wow, I'm really sorry. You must be really damaged from what I've done to you. And I'm willing to do the work on it. And, you know, for him, it was like, wait, this is the first time in the history of my life I'd ever heard someone actually own they were responsible for something that impacted me in a negative way.
Yeah. And then, so I then followed her and did the same weekend a little while later. And I saw that I was being a robot in our relationship. Basically, I was not being authentically myself. I would walk into the room, kind of gauge how she was feeling. Is she happy? Okay, good. I can be relaxed. Is she upset about something? I need to be careful and walk on eggshells.
And I need to fix it.
And I need to fix her. And I was just being a robot. I wasn't being my authentic self. I was just always in reactive mode.
Right.
And it was kind of like this. If you know people who are, it's like, hey, what would you like for dinner? I don't know. What do you want? No, just choose. Pick a restaurant. I'm really tired. I don't want to choose today. How about you choose? Oh, whatever you want. It'll make you happy.
So I don't know if this happened to you, Jan,
Yes.
but that can breed a type of passive aggressive behavior.
Sure.
Because what happens is you're always kind of holding yourself in, and then it kind of comes out because that energy comes out, frustration comes out. So I don't know if you were or you weren't, but that can happen.
Well, what it does is it skirts all responsibility.
And it creates denial.
Yeah.
And then as a result of being in denial, when you're held accountable at where you're denying something, then you lash out.
Yeah.
And his lash out was also very passive. So the aggressive part of it never came to play. So it was like the victim saying, hey, why are you doing this to me? As opposed to, I don't like this.
Right.
Let's talk about how I'd like it different. It was like, you know, I can never be good enough.
But don't you think this is really the basis of why we form relationships in the first place? Because there's no better mirror than the person that's your partner. And I actually heard recently that we almost, now I'm not sure if you did that just hearing about your past, Monica, but we almost pick people to play in or stand in for the family structure that we grew up in, or for what we need to learn, because we need to push against that wall to grow. You can't grow if things are, I mean, some people might beg to differ, but you can't always grow if things are simple and easy. You need that resistance, like working out.
Right. Well, so as you mentioned, we both have a master's in spiritual psychology.
Yeah, and I do want to ask you about that, but I'm afraid I don't want to take you away from your story.
Okay, well,
We'll go back. We'll circle back.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll go back to your question. But what I was going to say is, in spiritual psychology, you know, one of the tenets is that we are here on the planet in order to really learn lessons in the evolution of our spirit, of our soul, or whatever you want to call it, our energy.
Yeah.
And basically every person that you're meeting along the way is really perfectly designed to help you in your education, to help you in your learning. So typically, yes, I mean, so yes, typically the person that you marry, you could say is perfectly designed to help you learn whatever lessons you're supposed to learn. And we don't know that when we pick the person.
It's just so perfect because we never think we're picking that person, you know.
And by the way, that doesn't mean it needs to be resistance. It doesn't mean that the relationship has to be terrible and awful and difficult. It just means that they're there in order to reflect certain things, in order to support you in your growth.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you said that, because I would hate to think that I'm like the resistant, you know, person in my relationship. But yeah, or that's how we evolve.
When I remember the first time that we met, you had shared that one of the things we had asked to do as an exercise was think about a person in your life for whom you had an interaction where you felt that there was some way it could have gone differently. And you're like, oh, in retrospect, I could see how I really wanted them to see my perspective and my point of view. And I could have actually presented in a way that was more collective and collaborative.
Yeah.
So that for me is also the invitation. In our master's program, we talk about something called a stacker. And so what a stacker is that imagine that there was a cloud, and on top of the cloud is an angel. And the angel has a stack of lightning bolts. And the angel is designed specifically to send you the lightning bolt of the current lesson you're learning in your soul curriculum, in your soul lessons. So it just sends you. It doesn't care whether you hit it out of the park. It doesn't care whether you miss it and fail a bunch of times, but it will send you the lesson. It will wait to see whether you passed or failed, and it will send you the next lesson. And when you've passed enough, because it's not just pass it one time and get out of jail free, it's pass it enough times where the angel knows you nailed this lesson. Now I can take you to level 2 of that lesson. Or let me take you to, so it could be a lesson in patience, a lesson in compassion, a lesson in being able to listen to your partner. So authenticity doesn't come simply because you are able to share honestly what you feel. Authenticity also comes in the ability to see from other people's perspective, put yourself in their shoes. So just like you also mentioned mirror, there's also the experience of being not just seeing the mirror in someone, but being the mirror for someone, being willing to be that for someone.
That's a lot of responsibility to hold a reality within a partnership. So I was really interested. I think you're actually already describing it, but I was interested in what a master's in spiritual psychology entails. Like, how is that different from other psychology? I mean, I imagine you both had a couple of years of this. So it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to evolve and every difficulty is a lesson and I got it. So but I was just wondering, like, just because I think a lot of the viewers, and that's you guys, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and just, I have to like stop to remind people to tune in, let us know that you're there. But just so that the viewers know, because I may not have known a few years ago what spiritual psychology was, if that was going to a church or a synagogue. So maybe you can tell us.
You're beautiful at defining it.
So spiritual psychology, one of the tenets is we experience upset in life. And there are varying degrees. So some people would say trauma, some people would say dis-ease that turns into illness. And those things that cause the upset, we then plant and house in different experiences and different levels of our consciousness. We plant them in our physical, we plant them in our thoughts, we plant them in our emotions, and we even plant them in our practice, our spiritual practice, our religious practice, or whatever our practice is. And so the concept is to be one with oneself. It requires an experience of loving oneself unconditionally. And to arrive at unconditional loving, one must recognize that you're not necessarily going to just skirt over any issue that comes your way and feel like everything's hunky-dory, don't worry. But when they do arise, to be able to identify, have the awareness, be willing to see it. So cultivate the confidence, like it doesn't define who I am. It's just simply an experience I'm passing through. And then apply loving to the parts inside that hurt so that you can heal.
Do they also go through traditional psychology?
Yes.
And, okay. So it's really a well-blended course.
Yeah, it's a 2-year program. You basically learn 42 basic principles and skills in year 1. So every single month, you're doing 30 hours of basic skills and principles and application in small trios. So you have the counselor seat, the client seat, as well as a neutral observer that gives the feedback, the non-biased feedback. And then in year 2, you embark on 4 different projects. Project 1 is your relationship project with the most challenging relationship of your life, whether alive or dead. And there's a spiritual treatment plan that you do and an in-trial curriculum that surrounds that. You then do a nurturing project to love on someone in a way that you maybe often don't make time to, but you just adore them. And there's a practice that you could put into play to actually show them how much you love them and show yourself your way of loving.
Yeah.
It develops and heightens your love.
No, I'm interested. It sounds like I keep picturing like somebody being at a gym, like adjusting the weights, and the weights are getting higher and their heart's opening more.
That's right, heart weights. That's right. Project number 3 is a project.
I'm also coming up with people in my mind. I'm like, okay,
this person can do it. That's great. Project number 3 is a project of your heart. So often in life, we justify that we have something on our bucket list or something we want to accomplish or do that we put on the very bottom of the list as a someday maybe, and often die before we've ever done it. And it taps right into the part of us that would leave our legacy. So in this program, you get to actually fulfill on, you have a staff member who holds you accountable and a project team that holds you accountable to narrowing in on a project that really is of your heart.
Mhm.
Because when you're expressing something that you're passionate and connected to in a heart space, your creativity and innovation soars differently, and your willingness to go after it every day is different.
Right.
And so you learn the tenets of how to be resilient, resistant, disciplined, creative, co-creative in the process.
And this project also is co-creation. So it's like so often people feel like I need to do everything all by myself. And well, what if you could actually co-create with spirit? What if you could actually co-create with parts of yourself inside of yourself to support the process, to really tap into different areas of creativity and innovation and velocity?
And this is what we were talking about the last time you were at our class, when Jan was giving the example towards the end of, when I was a little boy, he loved to do computers.
Yeah.
So you tell the story, because it's going to be funny for me to talk about your experience.
Well, so I had a project to build an app, and that's the project that I chose. And so to sit down at the computer and to do homework, even though I love sitting in front of the computer and the work that I was doing was fun, I often would experience it as work and tedious, because it was within the parameters of this is my school project. Now, if I wasn't within the parameters of a school project and it was really just something that I was doing as play, it would be fun. And it's the same thing, but because of how I was choosing to perceive it, it shifted my relationship to it. Now, I knew that I got my first computer when I was 13. It was an Apple II Plus in 1983. And
God, you were way ahead of a lot of people, a lot of kids having computers in 1983.
Right.
Or oh my God,
I've always been.
Yeah, we're a digital
techie,
native,
yeah,
which is
you're
unusual
techie.
for our age.
Yes. So, and I used to I would buy books and learn how to program, and it was so fun.
Yeah.
And so what I learned at USM was, before I would sit down, before I'd get to work, I would sit down and I'd close my eyes and I'd imagine myself at 13 in front of the computer, and I would talk to that little boy.
So you would connect back to your 13-year-old self.
Yes. And I go, come on, Jan, do you want to do this with me? And it was always like, yeah, that would be great. And it's like, okay, we're ready to go. And, the very, very analytical, scientific, need concrete proof of everything in my life, Jan, thinks that's a little silly. But then there's another part that goes, that sounds awesome and fun. And here he is, and we would play together. And it allowed the whole process to be more fun. And I felt like I was free, and time would go by faster.
Well, it's interesting because you're talking a lot about connecting with the heart. And remember how they've always said, follow your heart.
Yeah.
There's something about the heart being some sort of funnel for us, where maybe when you listen with your heart, you get the answers, or that's really, maybe everybody thinks the brain is the center.
Right.
And I know that this is what you guys are about. That's one of the reasons I'm bringing it up, because I know that you can expand on it, but everybody thinks the brain is the center. And most of us live our lives as the brain being the center of our universe, of our plans, of our daily living, our moment to moment days. But when you really tune into the heart, which is outside of that kind of time and space, maybe that's really where that's all you need. You just live your life that way, like a superhero. Like,
well, yes, totally.
You have to think superhero heart.
Sure. Well, so, and you can correct me if I'm a little bit off on this, but if I'm not mistaken, psychology is the study of psyche, and psyche is actually spirit or soul. That's a translation of psyche. And
is it? Because
yes.
I thought it was more like the subconscious, unconscious, but it's really spirit or soul.
I think that if you're there, if you could Google and let us
yes,
know.
call in.
I did it once before, but what's interesting is most people when they study. But so if I'm not mistaken, psychology actually means the study of the spirit, and I need to check that. You can confirm, you think? But most people now, psychology is more the study of the mind and the study of behavior.
Behavior, yeah.
Yes. So spiritual psychology is actually like saying the same thing twice, because it's the study of the spirit, and it's studying spiritual psychology, study of the spirit of the spirit.
I see. Yeah.
And that's so. it's really, so to get back to what you were saying, one of the things they teach is, you can imagine when you're using the word heart, another way would be to talk about your authentic self, or your energy, or your inner being, or just love, your soul, whatever it is. But, what we talk about all the time is that we're perceiving life through our senses, through our eyes and our ears and our nose. And we have this physical form, and we're using this physical form to perceive life. And we're using our brain to kind of figure everything out along the way. And when you say heart, for us, it's not the part that's the physical form, it's the energy or the spirit or whatever word you want to call it. We call it the essence inside. And you could say that part just knows. That's the part that just knows.
Well, that is the core of the authentic expression.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
Kind of like a train, where the mind would be the engine and the heart is what takes you there.
That's like the conductor.
It's not the actual train.
Yeah.
It's the conductor. It's the people that had the reason to get on the train, that gave the conductor a reason to be a conductor. It's not just the conductor. The heart includes the intention of the train to get you from one place to another, which is a really weird concept.
Well, it's a very opposite concept of how we live in today's society.
Yeah.
Well, what we value.
Our values.
Greek roots, study of the soul.
There you go.
Thank
See,
you.
so
Study of the
so
soul.
all of you guys that were wondering the same thing I was, now we have validation that there really is more soul in psychology than we
There's
thought.
supposed to be. There should be. And that's why they went ahead and they created this university, because people were missing this. The people who leave the university, Drs. Ron and Mary Holnick, they have an extensive background in psychology.
Clinical psychology.
Clinical psychology.
PhDs.
And they saw that this is what's being missing, or this is what's been missing. And so that's why.
Well, and it goes to the willingness and comfort of people. Exactly what you're saying. We have been taught by modeling over and over and over to think about what you do and figure out what you do and fix the problem and solve the answer. We've been taught, and a very answer-directed society. Get to the result, get to the answer, make the money, do the job, put the money in the bank, take the money and put your kids in college. Your kids in college should have this retirement fund. Like all of these directives that get to an end goal. But soul, there's no end. And there's really no beginning. We're all a constant evolution from that which came before. And there's no beginning. So it's like from that which came before didn't start. It's like it just was there, but there was an awareness of it. And so authenticity, as we're talking about in relationship, and let's get into the definition of not just coupleship and not just marriage. Like Jan and I are creating a relationship program, and he and I for months went back and forth, kind of conflicting ideas. Like, I don't want our relationship program to be about coupleship. I don't want it. It will have components to coupleship on how to navigate. But what's relationship at its core? How do I sit across from you and say, okay, I look at you on the outside and here's my experience of you. And then I get to know you and we have this fascinating conversation and a part of myself gets opened and considered and sparked. And then I take whatever you and I shared and I go to Jan and say, oh my gosh, Madison and I had this incredible conversation and I want to share it with you. And then my 13-year-old son is sitting over in the corner, is like, Mom, Dad, I was learning in class about blah, 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 blah. All of a sudden, that one seed of an idea that you had about doing a podcast on how to have relationship in coupleship authentically turns into an entire discussion that then leads to a TED Talk. We just... If we limited it to what did Jan and I get, what's the value of our relationship, how do we navigate what we're doing, we lose that relationship essence itself.
Yes.
Is at the core of everything we do.
And at the end of the day, we're really all
related.
Yes, but also at the end of the day, we're really all kind of by ourselves. And we're coming into a relationship bringing ourselves. We're all separate units. Too, and I guess you
maybe
I don't agree with that, but yes, I hear what you're saying. I think that's a misunderstanding
on a spiritual
level. I think that because you have skin,
yes,
people think I'm my own container, but our skin would not have pores if we didn't require the oxygen. It wouldn't need them. If we were our own units, we wouldn't need environment. It wouldn't matter whether the air quality was good or bad. So we're conditional. Our skin, our bodies,
well, we're
rely on-
definitely meant to connect.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's a whole audience of people that aren't in relationship either. Like
Right.
maybe they're single. So, but yeah, you want to make sure that everybody gets those messages, not just the people that are together.
So,
exactly. And also that for people who have felt like this is, I guess, a fundamental. I have many friends who are beautiful, intelligent, articulate, powerful, and have so much love to give, and they're single. And they try to figure out, what could I be doing wrong that's keeping me in this context of being alone or single? And like, I'm really at the core of that question, because it's not them.
Right. I mean, there's really that's a place that I think a lot of people go to, is labeling it as wrong. But I mean, there's so many different reasons why people aren't connected at that moment. I mean, there's things that they have to work on it with themselves.
Time.
Could be the right person hasn't come along for them to connect with. Time. Yeah.
So for me, I feel like what if people are asking the wrong question? What if they're focusing on what they need to become better at versus the question of, do I know myself the way I wish to be known? Because if you know something about you and I never learn it, then when I need help with that, I won't go to you to get the help. But if you share with me and know yourself and know how to share with me who you really are, then I'm going to come to you when I have that question in my world, like, Madison, I really need your assistance with this. Can you reflect what you're hearing, your wisdom, your intuition, your capabilities?
Wouldn't it be nice if everybody did this all the time?
Yeah, well,
like on a daily basis?
Why not? Like, that's what part of this is. Why we say yes to being part of these conversations is because I get to learn how you serve me, him, our marriage, and our community.
Do you think that people are afraid to be authentic?
Yes.
Do you think that has something to do with it?
Well, I think it's a part of it.
I mean, I think people at their core, like when we work with people, pretty much almost everyone has some type of fundamental, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, one of those fundamental issues that they're working through.
I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. And if I'm going to be fully authentic, then you're going to see that I'm a fraud, and you're going to see all my ugly stuff. And I'm still judging all of my ugly stuff. So that's why I don't want you to see it. And the minute people stop judging themselves and really love themselves and embrace themselves authentically, then it's a lot easier to be authentic, because it doesn't trigger you when someone, because even if someone judges you, you're not judging yourself.
Well, those things get smaller. They're not so big and scary.
Yeah.
Well,
that's
because you're not trying so hard to hide them.
I think that's part of why we're so just very transparent and very open about who we are.
Even in our class, like we'll talk about our past and how we almost had, decided to get divorced and how our relationship has been bumpy. And we talk about the things that many people wouldn't want anybody to know for the fear of the judgment. If you're going to judge me, great. That might give you access to seeing where you judge yourself. Perfect. And to learn not to be attached to it.
Yeah.
Because we know also that we're doing the best that we can. We're doing the best that we can. And
I think that is the nugget that I think is the best takeaway of the day. Because if people just use those words, then I think that everything else would kind of relax. It's almost like yoga. It's like everything would just I'm doing the best that I can. I mean, how many of us say that to ourselves?
No, most people say
I don't
could be
always
doing
say
better.
It.
Yeah, I
because people could, and what I've heard Monica say a bunch of different times. If you could be doing better, you would be.
Have you said that? No, you haven't.
Not today, but in my life, I say it all the time.
Yeah, not today, but in general.
But it's also interesting because we can see how our conditioning kind of pushes into our lives too, and into,
if someone says like they want to lose weight, and then they go, well, it's like, I haven't been eating that well, and I haven't been making choices. It's like, I really could be doing better. It's like, no, you're doing the best that you can. If you could be doing better, then you would work.
Then you would be.
You would be.
Yeah, because people, and I do believe that. I do believe that people, we're wired to rise to the occasion. That's why I think positive reinforcement works and negative doesn't.
Right.
We're meant to, we're wired to grow and evolve and rise to the occasion. So we would be doing, if we could, we would.
And you know what I do all the time? Because we live in this society of where just people want efficiency, people want results, people want this high level
they also
of
want
performance.
It right now.
And
whatever it is, they want it now.
And so
I'm victim to that.
Yes. And what I
some of that's training, just the way our society's set up.
Totally. That's just what's the norm.
It's like the Pavlovian thing.
Yes. But what I often do is like, okay, I'm looking at you right now and I'm imagining you as a 5-year-old girl, right? And I'm imagining you as a 5-year-old girl wanting to connect, wanting to have friends on the playground, wanting to be someone who is like helping. If there's an argument happening on the playground, you're going to be the one who's going to go over there and try and help and work it out.
That was me.
Okay, right? So I can just see that. And that allows me, like, any judgment that I may have about you, it's like, oh no, she's this beautiful little person who's just doing the best that she can. Who's doing the best that she can. And when you can like create the ability to look at people beyond where they are right now in this moment
and what they're showing you,
and your opinion about everything that they're showing you, and your opinion about everything that they're showing you that's reflecting what you don't like about yourself.
Say that 5 times.
Right?
Your opinion about what you're not liking about yourself.
And you can look and just try and see someone's authentic self. And operate in life that way, that everyone is just here to learn lessons and spread love, and that they're doing the best that they can.
And I have a really neat example. So several years ago, almost 10 years ago now, I had a couple, husband and a wife, who came to me saying, our marriage isn't working, we're getting a divorce. And they came to me because they both weren't sure if they really wanted to get a divorce. They had young children, and they just weren't sure if they wanted to get a divorce, but they didn't know any other way. And it took a little while. And the way I work with people is I never let a couple come in and do couples counseling. I work with the individuals, and then we work on the third aspect of the people coming together. Is called the relationship. And we treat the relationship like its own entity, like a person itself.
Right.
So I work with each individual, and then I work with how do we do relationship. And you may define it doing relationship this way, and you may define doing relationship this way. But when we come together, this way by itself will not serve relationship, and this way by itself will not serve relationship. So what could you give up or add to serve relationship, and what could you give up or add to serve? And we begin to peel
solution based.
Yeah, we begin to peel the layers back.
Yeah.
And what came to be was not that he didn't love her or she didn't love him. They loved each other. That's why they didn't really want to get divorced. But what had happened was he misinterpreted that when she had children, she poured everything into the kids, thinking that would give him the freedom to work and have his life and not feel pressure. So she went above and beyond to take care of the children, thinking that's going to make him happy. And what he saw was, she's neglecting me, she loves them more, and I'm back fiddle and I don't get any love. There's nothing left for me. And she was doing like, no, everything I'm doing is for you. But because they didn't have that connection where she had identified, when I do this, that is for you to have this time. When I do this, that's for you to be able to choose when you want to involve. And so little by little, their relationship broke down into what she wasn't getting done for him. And it was literally like a to-do list of things that he had every week after week. Mm-hmm. Well, she didn't do this, and she didn't do this, and she didn't do this. And she would say, the to-do list is not what I'm passionate about. Like, I want to enjoy life and have fun. So we created certain boundaries, certain agreements, and little by little, we discovered how he loves to be loved, and how in the past, when they were 18 and they had met, she could love him and he would receive it. And so she shifted from giving all of that to the children and giving a lot more of it to him in a way that he could receive it.
Right.
And everything got
so that he identified
resolved.
And she identified and you identified for them how he needed to what he needed, really.
That's right.
How he needed to feel appreciated and loved.
Yeah. And so all of a sudden they were shocked. It was like, oh my gosh, how did you do that? It's like, no, you were willing to see what was once judged as hurting you as the gift.
Can we circle back now to how you had started to tell me that you had this really tumultuous year and the things that you had to do? And I think that's really valuable for other people to hear as well, as how you pieced that together. How long was that period of time where it was rocky, and why was it rocky? Was it rocky because, well, you had told me why, but do you think a lot of newly married couples might go through stuff like that anyway?
So,
I asked you a ton of questions.
It's great.
Sorry.
It's perfect.
Processing the question,
That's why we're here. Well, there's so many.
Two of you, so
yes,
I figured.
there's so many different ways to go about this. So one time we were at a dinner. It's funny, and the reason I looked at her is because there are certain stories that we recycle because they're perfectly, they prove the point. But we were at a dinner, and it was my wife Monica and I, and we were not married yet, and two other friends, and we were talking about growing up, what it was like in terms of arguments in the house. And one person said, there was lots of yelling and screaming, and that's what I experienced. Another person said it was physical and throwing things.
An interesting dinner conversation, really, on a date.
Yes.
That was good.
It was good.
We have deep, we go deep with our friends.
Yes. And so everyone went around and said, like, there was yelling, and then there was screaming, or there was crying, and expressed what they grew up in. And it came to me, and I said, I don't really recall my parents arguing very much. Like maybe when my father was driving and didn't ask for directions, but other than that, I don't think I've ever really seen my parents argue. And they all looked at me and said, "You are so messed up."
Is that what they were kidding though?
No,
they were joking.
And they used
the F word.
They used the F word. And it was because, so the reason is I had never seen dispute and resolution.
Oh, I get it now. Yeah.
So when in our first year of marriage,
first 2 weeks,
when there were things that weren't
out.
working, she would be upset and arguing and trying to work it out. And for me, it was like, I've never seen this before. My world is collapsing. Our marriage we're done. Like, this is horrible. I don't understand. This is not what I've seen.
And what can I do to fix it? Like, what do I have to do?
And that's a very male thing.
And all I was like,
no,
just let's talk through it and tell me what my point of view is, so I know you got it. Let me tell you what your point of view is, and let's work it out. And he was like, I can't even hear your point of view because there's conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we brought to the marriage, which is what most people in new relationships bring to the marriage, because you can't help it, is you bring what you know. That's what you know. You've seen.
I'm so happy you guys are on. I really I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
I should never do that. I do it all the time. But normally, like, I look at the clock. Sorry, guys, but I do. And I just want to make sure that I cover everything. And I just love listening to you guys. So,
thank you.
like, getting lost and, like, the time's going fast.
Well, it's our pleasure
so
to be
valuable.
Here.
Valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we've done a lot of work to process our pain and turn it into lessons.
We've been willing to do the work.
Yeah.
When people say, how do you have the relationship you have, or I want it, I say, well, are you willing to put 20 years of work into whatever you say you want? Because this did not just happen because we decided to get married. This did not happen because we said some vows at a wedding. This did not happen because we signed our name on a ketubah. It didn't happen because of those things. It happened because every conflict that we've had, every trauma we've gone through, every near-death experience that our family has gone through, all of a sudden, we had to navigate who are we going to be in the matter for each other and for them.
And why did it happen? And what are we learning from it? And how do we grow from it? And what's a new perspective?
And the one thing that was the key to all of it is, I love you and I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, once we got that one figured out.
I love you and I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
So no matter how bad it gets, no matter how hard it gets, divorce isn't on our table anymore. It's not part of our conversation where it's, I love you and we need to get through this.
So that's what was happening in our marriage, because we only knew the skills. We only had the tools, the communication, the relationship, the perspectives that we had up until this point. And then when we did this transformational weekend, it was a new perspective. So it was like we now had a tool chest and we had a hammer. So then we did another course and that gave us a screwdriver. And we did another course or did a master's in spiritual psychology and we got a wrench and some nails.
And the wood and some nails. So we could actually build
your
structure.
house.
Right.
Yes. And so
and then you can add your kids.
And we continue to read and listen and study and seek all new perspectives. And that's what we teach people. It's like one of the tenets that we teach is your way is not the only way. And most people, all they know is what they know. And the minute you start, I don't know if you've ever, like, you watch yourself on video or you record yourself and you go, oh, look at how I look or look at how I sound. It's like, it's different than the way I think I look and sound. And it's like, oh, so maybe how I'm experiencing things isn't exactly the way that the rest of the world is experiencing.
That's a good analogy.
Well, and have you ever had a person that met you and they're like, when I first met you, I really love this about you. Or when I first met you, I didn't like you at all. But now that I know who you really are, like at first I judged this and this and
yeah,
this.
no,
but
of
now
course.
that I know who you are, like, you're one of my besties and thank you so
Yeah,
much. And you've done
yeah.
such a big impact.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, in the book Blink, it talks, Malcolm Gladwell's book, he talks about within 2 seconds of meeting someone, you already have a filter of who they are for you and whether they're your person. So if we take 2 seconds to understand something, you better spend a lifetime getting ready for those 2 seconds. And we weren't willing to stop at the 2 seconds in any disagreement or situation.
So the first one was learning new perspectives. And then also like having a foundation of, okay, we love each other. And so let's remove the conversation of, is this person going to leave?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have that fear, there's so much energy going towards that it's hard to then be focusing on the growth and the learning and the other stuff.
It's not necessarily solution based anymore because the divorce is the solution, and then you can't do the other stuff.
Right. So, but then there's some other real fundamentals. The first one or another one is, like we talked about earlier, we're doing the best that we can. We're really like doing the best that we can. And people get frustrated with their partner and they go, why didn't you do the dishes? I was, or something like that.
The toilet seat down.
And people resent the other person or they resent themselves, but they're doing the best that they can. And the other thing is, and this is a critical one, is that I believe that everything that she says to me is intended to be a loving statement.
And for your best interest.
It really is.
It doesn't always sound that way in my tone.
Yes.
It doesn't always sound that way the way I feel. Because 1,000 things are impacting me, and he's the thing that set it off.
And if
because I felt safe enough to let him be the one to set it off.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know he's not going anywhere. I know he's not going to lash out at me. I know he's not going to hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
There's no malintent. If I did that to someone that I don't know what their intentions are.
And so what's really important is the message delivered or the message sent's not always a message received. And so I know that if she says something that I experience is like hurtful, like, ow, most people, what they would do is they would respond with an equally aggressive or maybe more aggressive response.
Or they would shut down.
Right.
One or the other.
One or the other. And if it comes to me and I go, wow, that really hurt, I know that's never her intent. One, if that is her intent, then she's hurting. And so she's lashing out because she's really hurting. Or I didn't receive it the way that she meant. So let me get some clarity. Mm-hmm. And then we check in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's a checking in. You keep that going.
And you called me an enormous jerk. What did you really mean by that? I'm kidding. But, if you say something and it's like, well, what did you really mean by that? Like, this is how I received it. Is that what you meant to say?
Well, and then there's the other side of it, which is, have you ever had a conversation with your partner and you had been keeping quiet about how you felt about something for a while, like longing for them to figure it out or see it for themselves and not wanting to be a nag or not wanting to point it out?
No.
Okay, well, so I do
because
that.
I'm the other side.
Okay,
yes.
good.
So I don't always tell him what I'm noticing.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of reasons is, number one, we have an agreement in our marriage not to coach each other. So I'm not going to always point out what I see because it's his work.
Right, got it.
But sometimes the choices that he's making directly impact my life. They impact our freedom. They impact my time. They impact my life.
Yeah.
And after a certain amount of time, it gets to a point for me where it feels like if I don't say something, then I'm walking around every day feeling resent towards you. And that's taking away from our love.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll say to him, it's really important for me to share something with you. And I don't know how it's going to land for you, but it's really becoming an issue for me. And I contextualize it in that way so that he doesn't have to take it on if it's mine. So then I share it. And let's say he really doesn't like what I shared. Like it hits him like direct, like shoot. Why do you always have to tell me that? Why do you have to bring that up? What, when is that going to change? Why do you see me that way? I know I triggered something that's his work. Mm-hmm. And I'm not responsible for what he responds to. I'm responsible for this is not working for me anymore. And if I don't tell you, I'm going to then resent you.
Right.
And separate. So, and you're having a big response over there. So maybe I'm not so off. And our agreement, silent or spoken, depending on what the scenario is are you willing to do the work?
Yeah.
So both of you are very, you're very adept at authenticity, about speaking your truth, about looking at the bigger picture, about growth relationships. Do you have anything to say to people that might just be getting into a relationship that don't have the background? Maybe they haven't gone to Santa Monica University and this is kind of new to them. Again, we are with Monica and Jan Zanz, and they have their own podcast, which we'll announce at the end, called Mindset Academy. So you can continue to follow them and tune in with them. But I mean, you guys are really kind of setting this wonderful example. And there's a lot of people that don't even know how to start because maybe they have some commitment issues. That's and right. Maybe they themselves have trouble living authentically and they're not tapping in to their true essence. So I don't know.
4 keys.
The 4 keys?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Okay. So remind me, what's the...
Did I put you on the spot?
That's good. What's the first one? Awareness. Got it.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but help me do that. Help me do it together.
Okay.
All right. So we're in the middle. We're excited to be launching soon our first relationship program. And it's going to be an e-course, and we're really excited about it.
Can you tell people where to find it?
Yes. Well, you can go to monicazanz.com
mm-hmm.
for right now. Probably in the next 3 weeks, they'll be able to go to therelationshipprogram.com.
Great.
Yes. So that's
very
easy.
good.
Therelationshipprogram.com. And it's going to be really great because we're talking about authentic relationship. And most people, when they are talking about relationship, they're talking about this relationship. And what we teach in the program is really what's happening here is also, it's not just how you relate to a significant other or your partner or your spouse or your sibling or your friend, but also how do you relate to things? What's your relationship to money? What's your relationship to your body? Because people don't have authentic relationships.
And you also, sorry to cut you off again, but you also do some, I know, I think I have a good excuse, but anyway, you also do business coaching, right?
Yes.
So this ties into that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because so there's how you relate to things. Because so often in business, so often in life, things are the way that they are, and you can't control them. I can't control her. I can control or manage how I relate to her and how I experience her. So there's money and there's bills. Bills are going to come every single month. You're going to have the same bills come every month. Some people get a bill and they are upset and frustrated that they have to pay for it. Some people get that same bill and they're so grateful that they have the service and they have the money to pay for it. It's still the same thing. It's how you relate to it. So it's how you relate to people, how you relate to things, like I said, money, body, life, death, things like that. And then also how you relate to yourself. Are you judging yourself? Are you being nice to yourself? What's the voice in your head? Are you listening to the voice that's cheering for you, or the voice that is maybe not so nice, that's trying to push you forward in the way that it thinks it's going to best serve you? So that's what we're going to be teaching in the relationship program. And one of the things we talk about are the 4 keys to powerful relationships. And the first one is awareness.
Okay.
What's the tagline for awareness?
I don't know, but
we need to have hashtags on my program. I need hashtags.
So awareness is it your way is not the only way?
I forget.
That sounds good to me.
Yes. So
anyway.
Yes. So
I think your way it's not the only perspectives tagline.
Oh, darn it. Awareness. So the first one's awareness.
Yeah.
Okay. It is your way. It's not the only way, because having the awareness that your way is not the only way. that other people are perceiving things, that there's other ways to experience what's going on. So if you're in the middle of an upset and you're like, this person said that to me and I'm upset about it. Well, someone watching it probably has a different opinion about what exactly occurred, you know, and the person said it has a different opinion about what and why and how.
Right.
So beginning to be able to go outside of your typical situation. So that's an important thing so if you're brand new, start reading books, start listening to
5
podcasts.
love languages, so you can start to define what language is the way that you express love.
That's a great one for
great.
people that are single.
Yeah,
for
the
sure.
4 agreements. I make all my clients read the 4 agreements before I ever will work with them. Like literally, if we're gonna work, I'll extend it for 1 week because it's a 4-hour audiobook. But I'll extend it for a week and say, you need to listen to the 4 agreements, because otherwise what can happen is I'll give them feedback on something they're asking. And if they're accustomed to taking things personally or making assumptions, they could misinterpret what I'm saying and not have the question to clarify it and then be mad at me.
Yes.
And then they won't get the value of the coaching that they're looking for.
Right.
Yeah. The Untethered Soul is a great book that really talks all about the conversation that's going on in your mind and your relationship to the voice in your head. So that's the first thing, is some of these books is a way to start, and you know, and there's different seminars and different things you can do, and Mindset Academy, so that you start getting a different perspective, so that you're not only inside of the perspective that you got from your parents and society and your own experience
And what you've seen.
And that you don't live a I'm right life. Because if you live an I'm right life, then you're right, great, and everybody else is wrong.
And you might not be happy. Would you rather
You
be
might
right,
be alone.
or would you rather be happy?
Yeah.
So awareness is one, and the second one is perspective. And it's your perspective is your reality. And what we teach people is what you're looking for is what you're going to see. And if you walk around, if you know, we talk to people, and sometimes someone will have a perspective that people are trying to take advantage of them. Or, you know what, people are so rude. People are so rude. And what they're going to do is they're going to walk around and they're going to see all the people who are being rude.
It's like they become a homing beacon for rudeness.
They're going to see all the people who are rude. The person didn't smile at them, the person who cut them off, and that's what they're going to see. And they're going to ignore all the things that are happening around them where people are being loving.
And that's funny, but that is one of the laws of manifesting, is that you manifest your belief systems, because not that you're creating this world like you're this magician, but it's more that you don't notice the other things. You just stop seeing it.
Yeah. And then, so the third one is choice. So we have awareness, we have perspective, we have choice. And when we talk about choice, it's choosing what's so. So, and this is a whole nother hour that we can do, but this is one of our favorite conversations. But the most fundamental suffering, in our experience, people suffer the most because they want something to be different than the way that it is.
Every day.
Every
month
month
after month, week after week, year after year.
I wish I looked different. I wish my bank account
and
was
are those
different.
things usually things they can't control?
Well, you can't control it in the moment.
Yes.
Right now, everything is exactly the way that it is right now, and
as
all
it's supposed to be.
And now, doesn't mean that you can't be working towards changing something in the future. But right now, like, let's say I feel like, you know what, I wish I had 5 more pounds of muscle on me. I wish I was in better shape. Okay. And so I'm upset about it. There's nothing I can do about it in this exact moment, but I can schedule time at the gym, and I can be working towards it.
And he could interview people, and he could get a coach, and he could get a trainer, and he could.
But in this exact moment, I can either be suffering that I'm not the way that I am, or I can just choose, this is how I am right now, and I'm making choices to be serving a better future.
And you could make a choice. I never am going to let myself be in this position again. You know, if it's a really bad thing that happened, I'm never going to, whatever I need to learn, whatever I need to do, whatever protection I need to get, whatever fail proofs I need to create, I'm never going to put myself in this position again. But it doesn't change the position.
Right.
Yeah. If you're on the 405 and you're in traffic, you can either choose, I'm in traffic, because you are, or you can wish and be upset that it's taking so long and that you wish that you weren't there. You can either be happy or suffer.
Yeah. So we have that choice.
So choice. And then the last one is context. And for us, our context is like, what's the context, or what's the space in which you want to live your life? And we say, you are love. And so we live life like, what a beautiful moment we're having right now. We're experiencing love in this moment.
And we look for what we love about it. We get this time together because we don't get a lot of solo time. You know, our clients and our roles and our exercise and our kids, like this is precious for us. So even though we're with you, this is a moment for us.
It's a little adventure.
Yeah.
You've never been to this patio.
That's right. And then we, are getting to have this really beautiful, incredible, and fascinating conversation with you. And you're getting to ask questions that have never been asked to us in the way you're asking before.
Oh.
And it's beautiful for me as his wife who loves him and wants him to thrive to see him engaging in a podcast. It's like all these firsts. Mm-hmm. And that's another key to relationship. What are you discovering about yourself that's interesting to you?
Just thought of such a good idea because I'm also trying to make a gratitude list. And I thought, it's easy to make a gratitude list, but what if I started to maybe at the end of every day, writing down 3 things that were the first? Because I think our brain actually, and they're finding out with neuroplasticity that we get these grooves in our brain. And oftentimes we don't look for those firsts. Yeah. And those are the things that
discovery moments.
Yeah, they create the spice of life, and they make you see things differently and get away from yourself. I'm going to do that tonight.
Wonderful.
Right?
We want to hear about it.
Okay. Glad to contribute.
So, one final thought about You Are Love. Most people, or a lot of people, they say, I'm not good enough, or I'm not worthy, or I'm not this. But what if you took on I Am Love? And literally every interaction with the person that you're interacting with, just knowing that they're going to leave having experienced love, having experienced like you listened and you got them, and that their life will be better for it. And you could say that's an egotistical, arrogant way of being.
If it didn't come from
but positivity comes out of it.
Yeah, so. But you could say like everyone is going to be better because they spend time with you. Well, you know what? We don't know. We don't know really the truth. So I'm going to take on that in all my interactions. I'm leaving people with love, and that they're going to experience love because that's what we are.
I think it's a beautiful intention, and I think it's something that can only make things better. So how can it hurt?
Right.
I have a friend who I told her about this podcast today, and she said, I have to see it. I don't know if she's tuning in right now or if I may just send her the link, but she's having problems with commitment. And I'm sorry, I won't mention your name, but she keeps falling into relationships, and then they get too close for her, too demanding for her. And she's losing the kind of, what's it called? Where
flexibility.
And to keep something going over time.
Longevity.
Yeah.
Momentum.
So all of those. Okay. Longevity, I think, is the one I was looking for. So I love that you guys have given people tools where they can read these books and realize that they're not stuck. They can realize that they have choices, and they can change the way they're looking at things. I think that's great.
Yeah. And to not feel like, up until now, I've noticed that in relationship, one after another, this is the pattern. To say, what if it wasn't that pattern? What else could you see that those relationships showed you? What could you see that it showed you positively about yourself? Could you foster that muscle to go introduce and be available for your next partner you're introducing or calling forward?
And I'm going to say it a little bit differently. So someone from that perspective, or someone might have the perspective of, this is what went wrong in every relationship. And this is what we do. We say, try on this perspective, see how it works for you. So how about this perspective? What if every one of those relationships went right? In order for you to learn something from each one of those relationships, so that when you meet this next person, you're ready for them.
Right. From all these copulation of different experiences coming together to make you who you are.
Yeah, like she's probably learning resilience. She's probably learning how to self-soothe.
She is learning resilience.
She's probably learning how to be compassionate. She's probably learning how to not take things so seriously and personally. So if she saw that, and then how could she serve the planet, like her girlfriends or her friends, or make a new career path? Like, it's like those men had to do that to her to have her open up $1 million business. Like, we just sometimes, if we're not looking, don't consider how it served us.
And her whole past and all of those relationships, they are exactly what they are. So she could be sitting and being upset with herself and upset with them. Blessings.
See, this is why I wanted to have you guys on, because the show is very out of the box, and I love how you take this and you broaden it to make it matter on such a large scope. I think we're just about running out of time, and I still want you guys to be able to talk about Mindset Academy and tell people very clearly where they can find you, especially if they just tuned in. Again, this is Monica and Jan Zans. They have their own podcast. I want to make sure that everybody knows where they can find you.
Yeah, great. So right now, monicazans.com
Is where everything lives.
where everything lives. And you can also go to iTunes and you can find Mindset Academy. Monica also has a show called Wake Up with Monica Zans, where she interviews people about how they have
Wake up with their purpose and their passion to do the things that they're meant to do on the planet.
Yep. And Monica also, she does beautiful meditations. And I don't know where they come from. She just like,
Channel.
she channel, they just flow.
She is connected to Source.
She's very connected. And so those meditations are available at monicazans.com. They're going to be available on iTunes, and they're also going to be on YouTube. We're turning them into these beautiful videos as well.
That's great.
Yeah. And janzans.com is coming soon. It's under construction. And stay tuned also for the relationship program.
Yeah.
But really, monicazans.com right now is the place to go.
Okay, so they can tune into that, and that's the heading where they can find everything else, and as things develop.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for coming to the Mindset Academy and seeing what we do and how we can serve your audience. We really appreciate it.
It's very inspirational. I love how you guys come in with different topics, and it seems to be what I need to hear at the time. I mean, that happened twice.
Great.
And so there's an element of magic in that.
Yes.
And I love the openness, sort of like this, how we don't know where it's going to go and different things happen. And it's great.
Well, thank you for having us, and
Yes.
thank you for doing what you do. And it's really wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So don't forget to send a thumbs up and let us know that you're here. And next week, I have a Saturday at 3 p.m. show. I flip-flop my shows depending on when guests can come. And I have a face reader coming on. I'm really excited about that. His name's Nico, and he does face readings, and he is tied into spirituality that way. So that'll be really interesting. Thank you again for coming, and we will see you next week.
That's good.
Bye.
Bye.